Welcome back to day 2 of the alchemical marriage in the sky, but that's just one layer of it because we all know there's many layers to it. So we're going to finish off today with uncovering all the layers of this cosmic Passover, this earthly Passover, this manly Passover. So we're going to look at why Easter is celebrated the way that it is, and we are going to finish this off with some scriptures that tie in with everything that we've been talking about. So let's go into the cosmic Passover, which is right there. All right. So this is basically moving on from one age to another, from the Piscean age to the Aquarius age, the cosmic Passover. We are 2,000 years within each house, within each energy, you would say. So we would cross over to a new age, to a new time frame. And so it is explained beautifully here, Luke 22, 8 through 10. And he sent Peter and John, saying, "Go and prepare us the Passover, that we may eat." And they said unto him, "Where wilt thou that we prepare?" And he said unto them, "Behold, when ye are entered into the city, there shall a man meet you, bearing a pitcher of water. Follow him into the house where he enters in." This is mystical, this is allegory, this is metaphorical. So in metaphysics, in mysticism, a city is consciousness, it is yourself. So enter into the city, enter into yourself. There shall a man meet you bearing a pitcher of water. Bearing a pitcher of water, the whole symbolic nature of Aquarius and of the symbolism of the man with the water, even though it's an air sign, is that I will pour onto you the Christ consciousness. I will pour onto you all this wisdom, all this truth, all this understanding. When? During the Aquarian age. This is the Great Awakening. This is all of us slowly starting to raise our consciousness and be revealed with all this truth, with all this information. And so when it's talking about the house, we are looking at the house cosmically, we are looking at the house of Aquarius. And most people will gloss over this and think that that's absolutely not the case. But think and tell yourself, or ask yourself, are these instructions clear enough? What city am I supposed to go to? And what man am I supposed to meet who's holding a pitcher of water? I mean, like, is this a guessing game? Where's Waldo? Like, there is no concrete description of this. Go into the house. Everything will be prepared there. What house? Am I going to be going into people's houses thinking, look, I saw you with a pitcher of water, and in the Bible it says that I'm supposed to go into, I am in the city of Apex, and I'm supposed to go into this house because I saw you carrying a pitcher of water. You cool? You got everything ready for me? It's not a guessing game. It's symbolic. And so it's basically telling us of the cosmic Passover. Be ready for this awakening. Be ready for a different age. Be ready for this different energy, because we're going to go from an age of belief and doubt to an age of knowing. That is the Passover cosmically. All right. The earthly Passover would basically be the fractal coming down from the higher cosmic to now, okay, we're going to look at this as a yearly cycle. And so in the yearly cycle celebrated at the 14th of Nisan or Nicene, it means April, when the sun in the sky consumes the lamb, Aries, the lamb, as we see here, and it makes the constellation go blind. It consumes it because the fire is in front of it. When this happens, spring comes. We have new life. We have celebrations. Again, yesterday we went over, what are we celebrating? We're celebrating rebirth. We're celebrating the fact that we are coming into a new season, a new year, actually. So when this happens, spring comes. We have new life, the celebration of spring, the celebration of the cherry blossoms. We have Bikurim, the festival of the first year fruits of the year, the celebration of Cherialia, and then, of course, Easter, or Ishtar, When the sun has crossed or passes over, we are now moving into a new spiritual year. So observe the month of Abib, which is April. Abib is April. And keep the Passover to the Lord your God, for in the month of Abib, in the month of April, the Lord your God brought you out of Egypt by night. Egypt represents our lower nature. Egypt represents darkness, night. We have fall and winter representing night. Spring and summer represents day. So when you are being brought out of Egypt, out of the lowest parts of ourselves, out of the winter of ourselves, and we're bringing you out of that lower nature of the darkness that you've been in, night, day, if we look at it that way, we are now bringing you out of Egypt and into not night, but now day. So we are completely shifting energy in a yearly concept. Does that make sense? Or am I just rambling? Because I feel like I'm rambling at this point.
No, it makes
sense.
Okay. Like I went off on like right field. Hold on.
No, that all makes sense. And I love that how you brought that up and what Egypt means and the night and everything.
Egypt is our lower nature, it's our bottom three chakras. Bringing you out of Egypt is bringing from your animal nature to a higher divine nature. And so this is the same thing we see in a yearly sense. In the yearly sense, we have our yays, our new stuff, our what are we going to do this spring? What are we going to enjoy? Our projects we're going to have in the summer and go out and socialize. And then we fall back down to, oh, what am I having to let go? What people do I need to let go of that no longer serve me? Let me soak and sit here in this winter time and heal from the entire year because, man, I'm exhausted. And then here we are with a rebirth, with a chance to start over, to have a renewal where we can start something fresh and new again, because Aries is a cardinal sign that initiates action. It's a fire sign that initiates taking a starting and initiating something. So we are initiating a new year here in the month of Abib, pretty much. Okay, so here we have the sun waits for his bride, the moon, to be in her full glory. That means she is a full moon. And so when you have the sun that has crossed over and now waits for the moon, because the moon goes 2.5 days within each house, in each sign. Now the full moon, now he's here. I'm waiting for my bride. She has to be in her full glory so that we can have this alchemical marriage in the sky. The sun represents the pineal gland. The moon represents the pituitary gland. When it is in full glory and they're both together and they're both reunited, that is the alchemical process that happens within us. As above, so below. So Easter Sunday is therefore the first Sunday after the Paschal full moon, Paschal, whatever, full moon. And this is specifically the first Sunday following the full moon that occurs on or after the spring equinox. And Pascha is basically meaning Passover. And this is why Easter is a movable holiday. You know, for those that are like, why does it always change? It's because the sun is waiting for the moon to do its thing. It's cosmic intelligence going on over here.
That's a great answer.
Right?
I was like, wow.
Yes. And
Wait,
so
and that's the first time that I've heard that.
Yes.
So
It makes sense.
cool. Yes.
yes.
So cool.
Yeah, that's the rebirth, right? So you have to have the male and the female to unite to create the third. 3 is renewal, 3 is rebirth, right? So the man's Passover, we went from the cosmic, we went to the year, and now we're going down to the man because everything is connected. The man Passover, you are to remain in your house. So let's look over what this means. No leaven in the house. Then Jesus said unto them, take heed and beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and of the Sadducees. This is my favorite part. How is it that ye do not understand that I spake it not to you concerning bread, that ye should beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and the Sadducees? Okay, What does that all mean? Like, if you were going to take this literal, what would that mean? Leaven is all over the Bible, and it mostly talks about bread. But we're going to break down that further. So you're to remain in your house. That's yourself inside. You're supposed to remain in meditation. You are to consume the lamb, and therefore there is to be no leaven in the house. What does that mean? Leaven is a substance. It's typically yeast that's used in dough to make it rise. It's also a pervasive influence that modifies something or transforms it for the better, as in like you transmuted something, you raised your consciousness. So the Passover is this, that by staying within yourself, you're raising your consciousness. The fire energies consume the pineal gland, Aries, the lamb, and all that is leaven, which is used to raise your ego, will putrefy, and Passover occurs because the angel, which is the impulse of death to your being, passes over you. Meaning, when your solar plexus, the place of the sun, rises and consumes the lamb, the pineal, you have a new life. You have a new mind. It says you will have a renewal of mind. And so anatomically, physiologically, there is not just energy that has to rise, there is also the physical aspect of it that has to rise in order for this to occur. So when he's saying, how is it that you don't understand of what I'm talking about? Because I'm not concerning actual bread. I'm talking about the raising of consciousness. How did you not understand me? Right? So like I did before, because this is a lesson we've done already in the QE Academy, but we're seeing it for the second time. I'm going to go over what Pharisees and Sadducees means so that we actually understand. And that's why it's highlighted there. And before I do that, let me just explain what Passover is. Passing over is overcoming, delivering. So the metaphysical meaning of this, the Passover was an annual festival of the Israelites and still is kept by the Jews in commemoration of their escape from the Egyptians. It was used by Jesus to represent the freeing of the spiritual man from the dominion of sense. It is part of the regenerative process that goes on in the body under the inspiration of the Christ mind. It is the passing over or out of one state of consciousness into another. In order to get the esoteric interpretation of the Passover, it is necessary to analyze the descent of spirit into the subjective consciousness and follow it step by step in its many manifestations. Meaning you will be guided by your own inner spirit that is coming from the Christ mind that is now renewed. And each time we have a renewal, we will see things more clearly. Okay, so to go back into Pharisees and Sadducees, Pharisees. In individual consciousness, Pharisees represent thoughts that arise out of the subconsciousness, binding man to external forms of religion without giving him understanding of their real meaning. The Pharisees represent the state of consciousness that is concerned with the formalities and customs of the external realm. The scribes represent fixed ideas built up in consciousness through one's adhering to tradition and superstition, the doctrines and precepts of men that have their foundation in personal opinion or traditional custom and are profitless. So these Pharisees is what it's saying is those that are still in giving their opinion based on the doctrines and traditions and what they learned that is now in their subconscious mind. So they're spitting out what is in their subconscious mind, but not really understanding the meaning behind it, not understanding the truth of it. And so when we look at Sadducees, the Sadducees and the Pharisees represent the religious concepts of the intellect, those that think they know. The Sadducees were a religious sect of Jews with strong materialistic beliefs and the Pharisees were formalists without spiritual understanding. The fact is that the intellect cannot comprehend absolute truth. Its religious beliefs are all built up from conclusions based on a relative conditions and are therefore of time and place. The Sadducees and Pharisees mentioned in Matthew 22, 34, 36, these represent one's preconceived religious ideas. So to go back to the man's Passover, take heed and beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. Beware of all these indoctrinations, these opinions based on tradition and not based on understanding the Christ mind and the true Christ consciousness within. They're just talking based on the external, again, the outer shell, not the inner shell. How is it that you don't understand what I spake of? It's not to you concerning bread that you should be aware of the leaven of the Pharisees and of the Sadducees. Be aware of these indoctrinations that come and tell you that things have to be this way or that way, or 50,000 different ways because there's 50,000 different versions and different religions. But no, be aware of that. That's telling you to look outwardly, because everything that is what I talk about and the raise and the leaven that I'm speaking of is the raising of the consciousness, is raising of it's raising of yourself. It's the raising of the sun, which rises and consumes the lamb, the pineal, right? So that you can have a new mind. And so I thought that was really interesting because many, many times he goes about saying, look, I tried to tell you something, but you didn't understand. You took it literal and you didn't understand the spiritual meaning behind it. Okay, Passover. Woo. Anybody have anything to say before we move on?
You know, I think it's super cool how with Christmas, we're talking about the raising of the chrism. With Easter, we're talking about raising of the chrism. It's all, we're having celebration and holidays based on what is happening inside of our body.
Right.
So
yeah.
fucking cool.
And how
So
each
cool.
person represents an aspect of ourselves. Just like the Pharisees and the Sadducees, we were once Pharisees and Sadducees because we only spoke about what we knew based subconsciously, not based on experience. It wasn't until we started going inwardly and having our own mystical experiences and finding and touching and feeling that Christ consciousness that we were able to talk now based on that experience, the true understanding of it, and not what we were told. So we are all part of this. We were all in some aspect, we are in Egypt. Sometimes we go down to Egypt. Many times we do. We are the Israelites. We are the Egyptians. We are all of these. We are Moses. We are Isaac. We are Jacob. We are Esau. They are aspects of us, the left brain, the right brain, the ego, the higher mind, right? So let me move on because I'm going out of, again. The heartless Pharaoh still refused to free the Israelite slaves, so God brought about one last plague, which was so terrible that it was certain to persuade Pharaoh to let his slaves go. That night, God sent the angel of death to kill the firstborn sons of the Egyptians. Now, you hear this a lot. Oh, you have to kill the firstborn sons of the Egyptians. And I don't know if you guys read the Bible, but it says you shall not kill. And then you turn the page and then they kill the entire town. And so there's a lot of paradoxes there, a lot of hypocrisy, but not really. That's if you take it and read it literally. If you are to read it this way and understand what the firstborn sons of the Egyptians truly means, now it has a totally different meaning. The firstborn males of the Egyptians are killed. So God told Moses to order the Israelite families to sacrifice a lamb and smear the blood on the door of their houses. In this way, the angel would know to pass over the houses of the Israelites. This is why the festival commemorating the escape from Egypt is known as Passover. Now, Egypt or Egyptians in ancient mythology or mysticism means that which holds you in bondage. That which holds you in bondage is the lower nature holds you in bondage. It's really hard to come out from your lower nature when you're in it. Right? We got to come from some place in the heart, in the middle, somewhere neutral to kind of help you get out of it and raise above it, to have that leaven. So the firstborn are the thoughts. Firstborns are thoughts that come out of your mind, because male means mind. So the firstborn sons, so it's the firstborn males. So that means the first thoughts, because that means mind. So when you go through this, then those things which come out of your mind that get you in trouble are killed. They're destroyed. You are set free from those thoughts. Let's say I'm having fearful thoughts and I'm going down this path of, oh my God, this is going to happen, whatever, and it's causing me anxiety. But if now the firstborn sons of the Egyptians are killed, those thoughts now are just, it's setting me free from the anxiety that I would have continued to go through because of these thoughts that are brought to me from my left side, from the ego that's like in fear mode. Sacrifice a lamb and smear the blood on the door of their houses. So like, let's look at that. And when he sees the blood on the lintel and on the 2 doorposts, the Lord will pass over the door and not allow the destroyer to come into your house to strike you. Okay. So this is what misinterpretation looks like. This is what taking things literally looks like, is smearing blood on the doors because this passage says do that so that the angel passes over you. Isaiah 1:11 says, to what purpose is the multitude of your sacrifices unto me, said the Lord? I am full of the burnt offerings of rams and the fat of fed beasts, and I delight not in the blood of bullock or of lambs or of goats. Isaiah 1:15, and when you spread forth your hands, I will hide my eyes from you. When you make many prayers, I will not hear your hands, they're full of blood. Wash you, make you clean, put away the evil of your doings from before my eyes, cease to do evil. Learn to do well, seek judgment, relieve the oppressed, judge the fatherless, plead for the widow. Come now and let us reason together, said the Lord. Though your sins be as scarlet, they shall be as white as snow. Though they be red like crimson, they shall be as wool. If you are willing and obedient, you shall eat the good of the land. But if you refuse and rebel, you shall be devoured with the sword, for the mouth of the Lord has spoken it. Okay, so yes, we've done wrong. Yes, we've taken stuff and misunderstood it because subconsciously that's what we were taught, right? Yes, many things have been taken away so that we don't understand them. So therefore we've done wrong. But if we come clean, if we decide to go inwardly, if we decide to have this Christ consciousness, Christ mind, have a renewal, if we decide to go towards the right-hand path, then everything will be forgiven. Everything will go from red to white, because yes, it's been red and crimson, but it shall be like wool. If you're obedient, then you shall eat of the land. You have to do the work to raise that consciousness, to raise the chrism, right? In order for you to eat of the good of the land, which means the manna that comes from heaven, which is that chrism, right? The oil and all the stuff that it produces and gives us new life. And in mysticism, if people who killed Jesus Christ were acting in the will of God, then are they not also responsible for your salvation? Because if this is how it was supposed to happen in order for us to have a renewal, then they are responsible for helping you with that. And so you not only have to thank Jesus Christ for your salvation, but also those who killed him, or else if nobody killed him, how would it happen? And so that's a whole thing layered in mysticism. We only have what they have allowed us to read. So that's understanding it from what we've been allowed to read. But what about the books of Thomas, the Acts of John, books the church didn't allow? So I'm going to read one story from one of those books. And in the Acts of John, John and James were in the boat and saw Jesus Christ on the shore. And James said to John, "Who's that little kid waving at us?" And John said, "I don't see a little kid, but I see an old man." And as they got closer and closer, I have JC helped them and pulled the boat in. Then John said, "James saw him as a young child, and I saw him as an old man with a beard." John then watched and watched, and his eyes never blinked. He looked for the footprints he made and there wasn't any. So this wasn't allowed because what it's saying is some people see him as Jesus Christ. Some people see him as Krishna. Some people see him as Buddha, as Muhammad, as the mind, as energy, as nature, as whatever. Nobody sees him the same way, but it's all him who is eternal, the eternal universe, the universal consciousness of God. In fact, it was read at the Council of Nicaea and they quickly turned it down and took it out. No, don't put that out there. Yep, we're taking that out, because then you start understanding that it's all the same. It's not my Jesus Christ compared to your Buddha. It's the same thing. It's the same energy. Okay, and to finish it off, the book of Thomas, Jesus says, before I give myself up to them, let us praise the Father in a hymn of praise and so go forth to meet what is to come. Then he made us make a circle, holding each other's hand. Jesus tells the disciples that he will stand in the middle and he wants all to stand in a circle around him. So we have the Son of God and his 12 disciples in a circle gathered, holding hands around him. The 12 disciples were constellations of the zodiac. It's symbolic. And the only way to see truth is by you going within yourself. And there he will show you. That is what we're looking at with the layers. The cosmic consciousness will show you a different type of energy in that age that we're living in. The light of who he is also the light of who we are and the light that is within us. The sun that is above is also the sun that is within us, our solar plexus. The manger, where Christ is born, in our spleen, if I go deeper. And so we have the man that is around, that goes around from the head of Aries all the way to the feet of Pisces. And again, the inner sun, and then how that inner sun is able to interact with all of our inner aspects, all our inner 12 aspects of ourselves in order to reach that point of ascending again, because it came from above, it went from above down, and then now it's ascending again back to the Father. And that is the story and the layers of how we look at this in a cosmic way, how we look at this in an earthly way, how we look at this in an inner way, and also as a man, and like the anatomy of it. So when we celebrate these festivals, when we celebrate these holidays, ask yourself, would I rather celebrate, and you know what, and you can celebrate it however you want, and I'm not judging. I'm just saying there's the layer of let's go find the eggs, which are cool. I did that with my kids. I loved it. It was fun, right? The eggs, but then putting food in there that's toxic for them, sugar, sweets, eating all the little Easter stuff that we know we shouldn't be eating. Because it's not good for our body. It's toxic, it's acidic, and therefore we will not have a rise of consciousness if our body is too acidic. So it doesn't help us, right? It's preventing us from Easter, again, preventing us from having this Passover. So when we're celebrating the Easter bonnets, going to church, doing the Easter egg hunt, celebrating Ishtar, versus understanding the Passover cosmically, earthly, yearly, manly, innerly, however, all of these layers. Now you're able to really celebrate it however you want to, but knowing and understanding all the many layers that it has. So you're truly celebrating yourself. And yes, you can say that the story of Jesus Christ, we're celebrating the man who resurrected, right? But are we supposed to celebrate a man outwardly? The Bible says not to. We are supposed to celebrate the spirit within us. And then Christ is within us. Therefore, we are celebrating the Christ in us. And that is the true Easter story. Yay. What do you think? Hearing it this time.
Thank you.
Wow.
It hits different, doesn't it?
Yes. It does, and it's because also we've been taking astrology class with you, and it makes more sense.
I'm
Even
glad.
Christine said, this is so, so good. I'm understanding it so much more this time around. Thank you, Joanna.
Oh, yay, you're welcome. Yay.
And I said, right? Every time there's something new, I learned something new. I love it.
And that's why when we watch things over and over, that's why I said, look, even though this was just like Christmas, like we had done it before, but even though we had done Easter before, it doesn't hurt to do it again and understand it at a deeper level, understand it like seeing a movie again, like, well, we're going to catch things we didn't see before. So for those that haven't watched this, for those that this is all new, know that because there's so many layers to it, there's a lot to understand from each of the layers. Like you can learn astrology. That's a whole thing to learn. But then what about anatomy? You got to learn your anatomy. There's so many layers that you have to learn in order to really piece it together. So like Tanya said, because everyone has been studying this and taking the time to really go through each of the things, now it's making more sense. To watch it the first time, a little bit different, right? It's like, whoa, what? I don't get it. I don't get it. And in not understanding it, we're led to want to understand it, hopefully. So,
I think every time is just mind blowing because of what we were taught growing up and then seeing it. Like, I love how you showed the Son of God being the sun in the center, and all the disciples, the 12 disciples holding hands, being all the signs of the zodiac. That I got chills right now too.
Well, what's
So
funny is that the last time that we did this, you got emotional because we talked about how Ishtar had to drop down the 7 gates in order to meet Tammuz and raise him out of his, the egg, and raise him up, the story of Tammuz and Ishtar, and how she had to come from her crown and, remove her connection to spirit.
Yeah.
Yes, and then remove everything she's heard from the doctrines and remove her necklace, meaning her connection to the high, and like all the way down to undressing herself to the bottom pit in order to raise Tammuz out on December 25th. And, coming from the top, going and letting go of all the things that we know, that we think we know. And that is surrendering. So it's like surrendering completely in order to raise our consciousness back up.
Yeah.
And so it's funny because like each time we do this is like a different story, and you're like either crying or getting chills, but it's really cool.
I know, it's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, chills all over right now. So thank you.
You're very welcome. Anybody else want to say anything, Keith, or because I know you're there, and before we get off live? If not, it's fine. All right. Well, I will update this under workshops in the QE Academy. So QEAcademy.Love has a bunch of workshops. If you're interested, check that out, because the Christmas story is there, chakras, dimensions. It's all free under workshops. So go check that out in the QE Academy. And I hope you enjoyed, and see you next time. Peace.